Hello and welcome to this AimHi Live. This AimHi Live is one of the first in the kind of like official series of climate science ones that I'm doing. Although I've been doing a lot of climate science every Monday, but if this is your first time here, then thanks so much for coming. You can ask questions whenever you want. Just get involved. I'm going to steer this in the direction of batteries and how can batteries stop climate change, but we shall see what questions people ask in terms of deciding where this goes. So OMH and PH is already here. Angel's here. 1 million slots is here. Thanks so much for coming, everyone. Right. Okay. I'm going to crack straight onto the first screen. Ooh. This here is a beautiful, magnificent thing. What kind of tree is this? Do you guys? Most of you, I reckon, will maybe already know what kind of tree this is. What's this tree? What's this tree? Japan Maple's here as well. Hello. And so is Venerable Sugar. So the Venerable Sugar saying it's a very old tree. And 1 million sloths is right that this tree is in America. This tree is, in fact, this is the reddest one I've ever seen. But this is Pumpkin Master's here as well. And so is Izzy Rose with the right answer saying it's a coastal redwood / giant sequoia. Spot on. Yeah, so this is a coastal redwood or giant sequoia. Now the reason I'm bringing this up is that it seems like almost every day these days there's like an international day of something, and I'm not very good at keeping up with these things, but I was told today that today is the International Day of... Does anyone know what today's the International Day of? I heard that it is the International Day of Rainforests, which probably will saying trees, and I heard that it's the International Day of Rainforests. Now, I know that obviously giant sequoias are not a rainforest species, but still, they're a pretty cool tree. And MPH is asking, has anyone ever touched their tongue to a battery? I touched my tongue to a battery, one of those 9-volt ones, is it? The square ones. And you just get like quite an unpleasant kind of sound. And like feeling in your tongue. I wouldn't do it again. Anyway, yeah, so it's the International Day of Rainforests. And just before I talk about batteries, I just wanted to talk about how great rainforests are and how much of a disaster it would be if we lost them. So I wanted to tell you guys a story about malaria. So there was a time, obviously, when there was basically like very little that anyone could do about malaria. So we were stuck with it, and if you got malaria, then it would pretty much be a disaster. And eventually there was a point when the Chinese government got involved, and they were like, this is ridiculous. Like, we need to find a much better cure for malaria. And so they basically set a huge proportion of the population, I think some of the army was involved as well, and they set them all on trying to find a cure by searching through loads and loads of herbal remedies, many of which were literally like over 1,500 years old. So they were looking through herbal remedy books from like 300 AD, 200 AD, like these kinds of times. And they were trying to find something that would work against malaria because the government was like, surely something in the ancient wisdom of these plants would work. What do you guys think happened? What happened? Ah, Jeff is back as well. Hi, Jeff. And Japan Maple is saying, yeah, exactly. Some ancient remedies had some use to them. And so they made this amazing discovery. Well, let me go down here. Oh, wait, you guys can't see. I'm going to show you again. It's this guy. So this guy here was one of the guys who was in charge of the project. His name was Lang Linfu. And he basically found, using these old remedies, by just essentially grinding up plants, that there was one plant that created this, that contained this chemical that was actually really, really incredibly effective against malaria with minimal side effects. And it is still used to this day. And it's called, I've written it down, aramycinin. That's what it is. Yeah, so aramycinin is the chemical that this guy discovered inside a plant that hadn't really been used in, well, it was mainstream medicine about 1,700 years before he discovered it. And then he brought it back to the mainstream. The point being that you can't rely on herbal medicine to sort everything out because a lot of herbal medicine has not really had any proper testing done on it. A lot of it is ridiculous and a lot of it doesn't work. But the point is that there is a huge amount of potential medicine locked up in our plants. And where is the greatest diversity of different plants in the world? In the rainforest. And so if we destroy our rainforests, we are going to lose loads and loads of potential medicines for diseases we may not even know we have to combat yet. So yeah, the key point that I want to make is that we really need to look after our rainforests. So happy International Rainforest Day. International Rainforest Day, which is apparently what it is. Anyway, so now I want to take a vote, now that we're going to get into the actual topic of batteries, which is this. Wind turbines. Do you think they look beautiful or do you think they look horrible? So what do people think? Do they look beautiful or are they an eyesore and a blot on the horizon that ruins the natural environment? Okay, so we're getting votes in on what people think between these two, whether wind turbines are beautiful or an eyesore. So Izzy Rose thinks they're elegant. Pumpkin Master knows someone with a phobia of wind turbines. Oliver doesn't think they're an eyesore. Venerable Sugar's pretty neutral. Zen was saying they're elegant but loud. So Angel at first thought they were an eyesore, but once they thought about the environmental benefits, realised they were beautiful. Great. Okay, cool. That's really interesting to know that you thought they were an eyesore to begin with. It's really amazing, isn't it, how your perspective on the natural world and the state of the world changes what you think is beautiful. So I remember driving through the countryside, looking at all these beautiful plains of crops and thinking, whoa, these crops are really beautiful, like these yellow fields of corn and stuff like that. And now I look at them and now I think that's actually really not very nice at all because it's so monoculture and I can feel how unhealthy it is for the soil, and I've started to think of it as a lot less beautiful. So for me, a beautiful landscape would be one covered in trees and wild land, whereas these kind of like sweeping fields of endless farm fields over and over again is something that I grew up thinking was beautiful and I've kind of since decided isn't so much anymore. And now I'm starting to think of it as a bit more disgusting. And it's kind of similar with plastic, isn't it? I remember being really neutral with plastic before I understood about it. And now any unnecessary use of plastic, I just find it like really disgusting inside. And I wonder if you guys have a similar opinion on this, because I feel that, there are a lot of people who complain about saying, oh, you shouldn't make people feel so bad about plastic. And I don't think it's the solution to make people feel bad as such. But I do think that the more people think of plastic as like viscerally disgusting, the more we're gonna remove it from the system. So I also think it's quite important for people to think it's disgusting. So Posey Joe is saying happy International Rainforest Day. Yes, that is what we were just talking about, which means you must have yeah. Oh yeah, I've written it down here. International Rainforest Day. So Posey Joe is saying you could decorate the wind turbines to make them nicer. Anyway, the thing is, like, I think most young people tend to think that wind turbines are beautiful because they've looked into a lot of the environmental benefits and they're like, well, actually, I think they're beautifully designed. I think they're very easy on the eye. They're kind of slender and they kind of turn nice and slowly. And I don't think they're eyesores at all. And especially when you think about the benefit they're bringing, I think they're just great. I love wind turbines. Anyway, so these are the different kinds of ways that we are generating electricity in the UK. So I'm just going to look at the UK because that's where I've got the statistics from, but you can think of this as maybe relating to the country that you're in if you're not in the UK now. We've got coal, we've got solar, nuclear, wind, gas, biomass, and then electricity coming from France, rather than using France to create electricity by, I don't know how that would even happen. Shoveling bits of France into a furnace. Right, so which do you guys think is the main source of energy today in the UK? Which of these sources is producing the most of the UK's energy today? And I'm just picking up on bits of chat. I'm seeing that Jeff's saying, sorry, can we put the wind turbines in the desert? The thing is, the wind turbines have to go where it's windy. And that's the thing about the UK. The UK is brilliant for wind turbines because there's so much wind. But one of the things we're trying to do so that we don't have to put them on the land is put them on the coast. So, okay, let's just flood this while people are answering that question. Let's just flood this up to here with water. So imagine this is the surface of the sea. And then this line can be the sand at the bottom or the ground at the bottom of the sea. And obviously it gets deeper as you go further out. So at the moment, we have really good technology for drilling wind turbines into the shallow bits of coast. So we drill them down and they can stay there for huge amounts of time, generating vast amounts of electricity off the coast so that they're not taking up land. And I think they look beautiful in the sea as well. God, I love wind turbines. Anyway, and then we're getting technology that's better at drilling down even further so that we can have slightly deeper ones. But ultimately, eventually, the sea gets a bit too deep. But there's so much space out there, and it's so unobtrusive to the life that lives out there under the water. If we were to create small platforms, small floating platforms with these big wind turbines on top of them, and this is a new technology that's just kind of coming online and being developed. But basically, we need to create these platforms with then rods underneath them. And what's really great is that a lot of these kind of counterbalance rods are actually being designed in a way that could help ocean ecosystems. One of the amazingly depressing things that happens in the ocean is that floating bits of plastic become ecosystems because plants and so on can attach to them. Animals go there to rest on top of them or to feed or so on. And so floating bits of plastic, like plastic islands in the ocean, are actually kind of good for ecosystems in the short term, but then obviously they result in loads of turtles becoming wrapped in plastic and all this horrible stuff. But anyway, if you design these kind of platforms really well so they can actually work well with the ocean life, then they can be a real benefit to the ocean because they can create more space for them to cling to. As you well know, most life in the ocean likes to hang out around the coasts because there's stuff to attach to. If we make little bits of mini coast around our floating wind turbines, that could be really good for nature. And I am so for engineering that's done with nature taken to heart as a core idea in how it's designed. Anyway, right, let's see what people have answered about the main use of electricity in the UK. So, Angel is saying maybe coal at the moment today. Izzy's saying wind. Venerable Sugar is saying gas. Jeff is guessing nuclear. OMHMPH is saying maybe fossil fuels. And Pumpkin Master is saying, isn't nuclear never used because nothing needs that much power? No, nuclear is used a lot because nuclear outputs power at the speed that you want it to output. And 1 million sloths is guessing coal or biomass. Well, you are all wrong because this was only updated a few hours ago, the most of the power in the UK at the moment is being generated by solar. So today, even though it's not even that bright a day, the UK is generating about 24% of all its power from solar. Now, if anyone can get the percentage of coal that the UK is using to generate electricity today, then that would be amazing. So how much of the UK's energy, I'm going to label it UK energy here, how much of the UK's energy today is coal? Who's labelled that today is, what is today, the 22nd of June 2020. So UK energy today, Posy Joe's saying 16% coal, 1 million sloths is saying about 15%. We've got Oliver is saying 0, Izzy's saying 0, Pumpkin Master saying 3, and the answer is 0%. The UK National Grid has decided to use the drop in electricity demand that came along with the pandemic to try and do away with coal forever. So they've basically shut down all the coal power stations, except for I think there's one that is remaining there, but it's not switched on. And I can't remember exactly the full story, but as far as I know, coal is on the way out for the UK, which is brilliant. Now, what do you guys think is the well, actually, I'll tell you the second biggest. The second biggest is gas. So this is natural gas, which is a fossil fuel, but much less polluting than coal. It's really not an ideal fuel for us to be using, but we're still using 23% of it. But what do you guys think is after gas? So what are we using? So it'll be the third most. So most today is solar, then gas, and then what? And Japan Maple is saying, no wonder the power station near me has been quite quiet. Japan Maple, do you live near a coal power station? And Posey Joe is saying, I thought that was temporary. I don't think the switch is intended to be temporary. I think the idea is to try and shut off coal forever because they've been wanting to do it for a long time. And well, I'm about to talk to you about why we kind of keep the fossil fuel ones going in a sec. But yeah, wind. So people are coming in with wind. So wind is the second most that we're using today. I think we've got about 22% wind today. And I'll just fill you in on the others because I've got them written down. So nuclear is giving us about 17%. We are getting from, I think, biomass, we've got about 3%. This doesn't count for all of them because there's energy coming in from other countries as well. But this is most of it. And then France is giving us about 5% today. France gives us so much electricity because France is absolutely full of nuclear power stations. And nuclear power stations are a way that you can generate electricity very continuously and reliably, provided that nothing goes horribly wrong, which it thankfully never has in a European country, unless you count what used to be Soviet Russia and is now the Ukraine. Which I think is where Chernobyl is. Is Chernobyl in the modern day Ukraine? I don't actually remember where it is. But anyway, France is full of nuclear power stations, which is why it gives us a lot of electricity. So the reason why we still use fossil fuels like gas, and the reason why we haven't tried to shut them down completely yet, is because of something called, I'm going to come to this in a sec, it's something called the intermittency problem. And this is this is basically the core of what I want to talk to you about, guys, about today. I'm rubbish at spelling, but I think that it says intermittency. Yeah, although I guess this is probably an E. God, I'm so dyslexic. The dawn of spell checkers for me was an absolute miracle. Anyway, it's something like that. The intermittency problem. And the intermittency problem is essentially, well, in fact, who knows? Who knows what the intermittency problem is? I really want to catch up on the chat because I can see it's very active. But see if you guys can throw into the chat what you think the intermittency problem is. If you want to jump ahead and you want to tell me what you think this is, go for that as well. Someone has spelt intermittency for me, which is great. Thanks, Zenon. I'm so bad at spelling. Oh my God, as soon as they took... I was in bottom set English for years and years and years until eventually they stopped putting spelling tests in the assessment. And as soon as they took spelling tests out, I started climbing up the sets, and then I was doing quite well in my English. And I finished in the top set when I stopped doing it, but I was so bad. I'm still terrible at spelling. Okay, so intermittency problem. So Amy is saying that they are old generation nuclear stations and not on fault lines. So nuclear power stations are thought to be much better if they're not sat on top of geological fault lines where there might be earthquakes and so on, unpredictable activity on the ground that could destroy the infrastructure and allow a disaster to take place. And also Amy's talking about the importance of nuclear in the transition to renewables, and I also think that is a thing that's important because of the intermittency problem, which we're about to talk about. So nuclear is part of the solution. But this is not something I want to get into today because that's a very complicated problem, a very complicated topic. And I know that a lot of people get very passionate about whether we should or should not use nuclear. So we'll talk about that another time. Okay, so Izzy Rose is spot on with the intermittency problem, which is that it's not always windy or sunny, so you can't always generate electricity. Exactly. So intermittency means means between the times that it may or may not be active. So there's intermittency with when the sun is shining. Sometimes it's shining, sometimes it's not. There's an intermittency with when it's windy. Sometimes it's windy, sometimes it's not. And so as a consequence, we keep online things like our nuclear power stations and a decreasing number of fossil fuel power stations like gas in the UK, because some days there might be no wind and no sun, and we would then not have access to electricity. And so the intermittency problem at the moment is solved by keeping online like gas power stations that are ultimately creating greenhouse gases and damaging the planet. So how else could we solve the intermittency problem? What is the solution? What is the solution to the intermittency problem? What do you guys think? Because the solution in theory is quite simple. It's just in practice, how do you do it? Okay, so I've just seen Amy's point there. Until Tesla develops better battery banks. Oh my God, I'm being dyslexic with my voice today. Until we get better batteries, that we will struggle to overcome the intermittency problem. So the solution to the intermittency problem is all about having better batteries. And so if you can have better batteries, then you can store up loads and loads of energy when the sun is shining, when the wind is blowing, and then when you have an intermittency problem, because there's no sun and no wind, that's when you can then discharge the batteries back into the system. So it's all about energy storage. We appreciate that the renewables in the world are not turned on all the time and we can't control them so much, but it doesn't matter as long as we can store the energy. That's why batteries could help to save the state of civilization that we currently find ourselves in. Right, let's talk about, so we're going to start to move in that direction. But first, I want to know what you guys think this is. What is this picture here? Japan Maple saying just get a load of Duracell AA's. Yeah, could just sort it like that. We should just write it to the government and be like, yep, just charge them up. So Japan Maple saying, isn't battery acid quite damaging? Yeah, so a lot of the things that are used to make batteries at the moment are quite damaging, which is what we're going to get to as well. So Japan Maple is saying, is it a dam being built? Angel is saying a dam as well. And Jeff Don't Panic is saying the same. Right, this is a dam in Cardiff. Sorry, not in Cardiff, in Wales. It's actually in North Wales. That is a huge battery. So I just wanted to give you a quick overview of the fact that there are loads of different kinds of battery. So there are the batteries that we think of like Duracell AA's, but this is a battery. And it's a battery because we can store energy by pumping water uphill into this reservoir. And then when we want the energy, we allow the water to run downhill again and drive turbines. And this is one of the main kind of batteries or energy storage units that the UK uses. This is one of our big things. So as soon as there's like a huge World Cup game on or something, and it goes to half time, this power station in Wales will suddenly open all of its gates and allow all the water to start flowing downhill, because they know that loads of people in the country are going to get up and start putting on the kettle to make a cup of tea, like doing their break at half time. And it's kind of total madness that the grid totally runs on demand and it just tries to meet the demand always at the time when it's wanted. It would be so much better if we had better energy storage, and that's why we need more things like this. However, this isn't very efficient. So here's another thing. These are some towers that are being designed by this company in Israel. And how do you guys think these towers might work? That looks like a little door at the front for little humans going by. And Japan Maple's called it the kettle surge. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so what do people think these towers are used for? How could these towers be batteries? So Japan Maple is saying looks like they move when they need to generate energy. 1 million slots is saying could they be wind powered? And they're not wind powered. Well, they could be wind powered. And okay, Izzy's got it spot on. So that's right. So the towers basically are build themselves upwards during times when there's an excess of electricity. So if the sun is shining and all the wind is blowing and so on, then there could be a huge hole underground that this tower could be in. And you could perhaps pump water underneath or pump something else underneath to push the tower upwards into the air. And then you can push other segments of the tower upwards and you can keep pushing more and more of the tower upwards. Although this one looks like a slightly different design where the center falls and the outside comes up. Either way, you're essentially using gravity where part of the tower is rising upwards to store electricity. Now, I remember someone, I was speaking to this guy. Oh, he's called Sir David King, and he's like head of the Centre for Climate Repair at the University of Cambridge. And he was talking to me about how we only need like 20 of these across the country, or some really small number, in order to store all the energy the country needs. And that would just be for the UK. And these towers aren't ridiculously huge. And so this is the kind of battery that we should maybe be looking at building in the future. Now, it's 1:28. I've got loads of stuff to tell you guys about how lithium batteries work, because it's a really good story, but I think I'm going to run out of time. So instead, what I'll do instead is I'll just kind of move towards wrapping up, and I'll do lithium ion batteries another time. The key idea about lithium ion batteries, I'll just give you guys the intro. Lithium ion batteries is that our batteries have not progressed in any truly kind of fundamental, proper step change way for about 30 years. If you speak to anyone who works in batteries, they'll tell you very frankly that basically we've had no big innovations for new batteries for 30 years. 30 years. And for that entire time, we've just been improving lithium-ion batteries and improving some other batteries and experimenting on ways to make these all better. But ultimately, like, we still are running on the same batteries of 30 years ago, just trying to improve them. And they're fraught with problems, so many problems. They're still about a quarter the energy density of petrol. There are all these ideas for how we could make them 10 times more energy dense using air and solid state. And yeah, you might have heard lithium air batteries and kind of metal state batteries and all these things. And silicon-based batteries, and I think I'll talk about those another time because it's a really good story about them all. But basically, we're still really struggling to make progress with batteries, and it's such a huge problem for the intermittency problem because we're still really struggling to store energy. And furthermore, lithium-ion batteries are made with some of the most terrible, lithium. On the one hand, that's more a political thing. The lithium's very controlled by China, and I'll talk about that again when I do a thing on batteries. But the other thing is that the cobalt that is necessary to make these batteries is mined in the most horrendous conditions in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And there's loads of like child laborers and stuff like that, and it's a total disaster. And like the whole world of batteries is a big story that I need to do justice by talking about with a long that I used to talk to you about with like a proper AimHi. But I'll just tell you one last fact before the end, because this is a cool fact. So lithium-ion batteries generally contain graphite. And did you guys know, because graphite, what element is graphite made of? Who knows? You will know this if you've done high enough level chemistry, or maybe if you've just taken interest. Yes, carbon. Loads of people jumping in with the answer. Yeah, so graphite is made from carbon. Now, graphite powder forms on planets like Jupiter, and it rises up into the atmosphere due to various currents. And then it starts to rain down in the same way that our water rains down. And as it rains down, sometimes it can solidify, and sometimes it will solidify in the same way that our water solidifies, well, a similar way to our water solidifying into hailstones and snow and things. And ultimately, what I'm saying is that it sometimes rains diamonds on planets like Jupiter, because if you compress graphite enough, then you will create a diamond. So yeah, sometimes there's a rain of diamonds going on in outer space. Anyway, right, okay, cool. I'm gonna say goodbye, but I'll just say thanks again for coming. Do sign up to the schedule at aimhi.co if you haven't already, and do please also follow us on our socials too, which is at AimHi Live, and I will see you guys another time. I am really keen to do one on batteries and wrap that up properly one day. All right, farewell all. Thanks for coming. And right, okay, I must go. But do check out Josh, who's on in 10 minutes, and I will catch you guys tomorrow for Kathy, and then Is My Green Your Green? Farewell all. Bye.